and there is an absence of triggers. The triggers will be the anger, the stress, the frustration, the anxiety. And the reason that we have the triggers is because we're disconnected from ourselves. So one would say, well, if Ingrid, if you're disconnected from everyone and everything outside of yourself, then how do you connect with? There you go.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening. This is Brenda Kilhoffer, and I'm your Cheap Mama, and we have our favorite guest, our back today, Ingrid Essawova, who is a spiritual life recovery coach and intuitive. And today, we had a brief conversation before the call about what's kind of going on in life and in the world, and we decided that our topic today is going to be about control and the relationship that we have with control. So let's take it away. Why don't you start, Ingrid, by just saying hi to everybody and what you mean.
Everyone. I am so blessed and honored and grateful to be here always, 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 always. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you guys today about the relationship with control. I think it dominates our life. I think that's what we were taught. We think that that is what we're supposed to do. And we really don't know any different. And it's all about the expectations and all that. So we're going to dive deep into it and really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah. So one of the ways that we kind of got on that topic is I'm reading a book called The Celestine Prophecy. And in that, it talks about the anger and the energy that one person displayed in a conversation with another, and how they actually sucked the energy from the other person as a form of control. And I think maybe we can't see it. Most of us can't physically see that as it outlines in the book. However, I think sometimes we can feel it in our conversations and altercations and things that go on in life. When somebody is attempting to control us and is an energy suck, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So how do we first start to manage ourselves and grab some awareness of where we are controlling others? Because I think, it's very easy in marriage relationships, parent-child relationships, relationships with teachers, with your children, with coworkers, to want to control a situation and everything around you.
Well, let's start from the beginning for where it actually manifests.
Okay.
So as we grow up, we somehow are taught directly and indirect to have expectations. And expectations come from the fact that we have titles. For example, teacher, parent, siblings, politician. Did I say teacher? There are more titles out there, people. Adult, customer service rep from Visa, driver. We all have some type of titles, and there are expectations. And when the expectations aren't met, there are triggers. When there are triggers, that means there are wounds. And then if there's wounds, that means there are fears. I hope everyone is catching up here and following this. Mm-hmm. So when there are fears, we want to hide those fears, and we wanted to make it different. So how do we hide it? We take over. We have a sense that if we control the situation, then people will see us differently. They will speak with us differently. We would have different credibility. And in fact, we probably want to intimidate,
Mm.
and we want others to kind of see us not less than. We feel less than,
Mhm.
so therefore we want to be more than. So therefore we have to instill, control over other people, to be louder, to be stronger, because we kind of grow up with that saying, this is what we do. We think that this is a norm.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And if we only and also people don't know how otherwise to do this. They don't have really any other tools. Are we taught this in high school? How to do it? No. And what is it that we do? What is the solution to this as we take it full circle? The solution is not to control, but to manage and navigate. When you manage something, there's flexibility. When you navigate something, you are looking straight ahead and there is a direction. And I always like the thing with control. If I am, because this is not visual, it's audio. If I clasp my hands together and I make a fist and I'm holding on really, really, really tight, is there light inside of my hands? No. Okay, so I'm controlling this. It's really tight. Is there movement? Can there be movement inside? No.
No.
Is there, so there's no light, there's no movement, and can I see? Because we want to see. No, I can't see. But when you open up your fingers slowly and surely, there is light, there is movement, and guess what? You can see. So putting that to life, isn't that what we want? So controlling, it's really funny. We think that we're controlling, but in actuality, we're self-sabotaging and we are more trapped than ever. If you actually release, you have more control than ever. Ha! Go figure.
Right. I love, I want to unpack this because you brought up so many interesting points. And I know one of them is just us learning and what we're taught. And it brought to mind, most of us are, whether we're in sales or not in sales, most people are in sales of some sort, right?
Some sort, yeah.
So when you're taught your role, whether it's leading, I don't know, whether you're on stage leading a talk, whether you're counseling somebody, whether you are selling a product, doing a presentation,
when you're selling yourself,
whether you're in a classroom, you are told, you are given techniques to control the room, right? It's not about managing the room, but you're taught that, hey, the person that is talking many times is the person controlling it. You need to control. We hear the media, we hear, politics, who's controlling the narrative. It's all about control versus, I think, when you really truly can come to a place where you're truly creating a win-win, whether it's in your sales or your counseling or any of those things. That's really when you actually sit back and start to listen and seek some sort of understanding versus, okay, this is the script or dialogue I need to use to make the person say what I want them to say. And I think a lot of what people are taught in customer service and sales and everything that they do in their every single daily jobs are scripts that will elicit the response that you want versus how to discover what somebody wants. Right. Does that, I don't even know if that's on topic from where we are, but that was just one of the things that I sort of unpacked as you were talking about what we're taught. And I just feel like we're taught from a very young place to control everything around us.
And where is that coming from? It's coming from ego.
Mhm.
And where does ego come from? Outside of ourselves.
Right, right.
Because God forbid you don't have, and it's so funny. You're thinking if you don't have control of the room, then there's no control. Yet when you're managing, that's exactly what you're doing. You're managing a situation. So there's flexibility and and also control has a certain energy.
Mhm.
Managing has another energy.
So unpack that for me. What's the difference between managing and controlling?
When you're controlling, there seems to be either one way or the highway type of thing. And I believe that there's many different situations that come up that there needs to be flexibility.
Mm.
So with managing, you can manage only one way. Absolutely. And why reinvent the wheel? So it's working for you of how this management technique, one technique for a group of people, and you're managing them and it works, great. Use only one. But when you're managing, you're also hearing others.
Mm.
You're also setting boundaries and standards without shoving it down people's throat, without creating an energy of stuckness. Is that a word? Well, I just created one. An energy of non-flexibility. And I think when you are controlling, you project fear. Whereas when you manage, you don't project fear. You
Right.
just project a pathway.
Right.
And I remember my son, I don't know why on earth, I remember this situation. My son used to play travel basketball, and I was watching, as I do every time, watching the coach during my son's practice. And he got them all in a line, and he wanted them to express how they feel about something. And it had to be done a certain way.
Mm.
But all the boys answered in another way, exactly the same. And I understood because their perception of how the question was phrased was one perception. And he got very angry and he got loud and he got mad. And of course, I went up. Of course I would. And go, well, perhaps the boys perceived it as such and such. Boy, that did not go well. I did it outside when the boys were not together. I did it in private. But when there's control, there's sort of no vision, no perception, no flexibility. Whereas with management, there is, and it's a sense of direction.
Mm.
And again, I think it really plays a part in the energy that you are creating, the atmosphere you're creating.
Right. So what do you think? So as you talk about managing the expectations,
We actually release all expectations. We don't manage them.
okay. So,
Yeah,
and I think that's where I'm kind of going with this. So just track with me for a second. So when I think of managing, I still think when for me, the term managing still lends to somewhat of a level when I'm thinking of doing it with other people. Like I'm thinking in terms of I'm a supervisor or I have an organization of people and I'm managing, versus how is that different than, certainly we don't want to control them. For me, managing kind of fits somewhere in the middle. And I think the place of truly empowering, and I think we can do it with ourselves and with others, is leading and inspiring. How does that,
so do you
definition
think
of managing, because
You don't think that one can lead or inspire through self-management? You don't think, do you feel like managing is watered down to controlling?
I don't, yeah, I feel like managing is
Managing is controlling without an attachment to the outcome.
Mm. Well, and I guess
Controlling is
I
an
think that's where
attachment through and through.
I think that's where, right, controlling is absolutely
Attachment.
yeah. And to me, I think, and it's probably just that our definition of managing differs, because I look at managing from, say, the corporate world, right? In management, I absolutely, when I'm managing a group of people, I absolutely have an attachment to the outcome. I may not necessarily have an attachment to how it gets done, right? But I still have an
Sure you would.
attachment to the results that
Sure you do.
happen. And I have an attachment to, do they show up on time? Does that,
But but then that would be controlling, because there is an attachment. Whenever you have an attachment, you're controlling the narrative.
Mhm.
When you don't have an attachment, then it's not controlling, because controlling's element is an attachment to the outcome, and then a judgment, and then an outcome. Whereas, is there an outcome in managing? Yes. You are required for this and this and this. If that is a fit with you, great. And if we find out it is not a fit, we need to go to plan B.
Right.
And that might be might not be here. And also that there is a reaction, action, and a reaction. But I think that the key difference is attachment. Controlling has an attachment, lack of vision, and flexibility. Whereas management is a wide angle of possibilities, flexibility, and a direction without attachment. And it creates, I would say, healthier and more productive results.
So,
and look at micromanaging. Micromanaging is control.
right. Well, and isn't time management controlling my time?
No, you're just managing your time. You're prioritizing.
Right.
And micromanaging your time. Can you micromanage yourself?
You could, I suppose. If you had every single hour of every day accounted for.
But then that's our choice. And if that works for us and it doesn't impact anyone else, who cares? You know? So what do we do? How do we shift in society? How do we inspire others that that control? But the thing is that we don't, because if we let go of expectations for people and we create boundaries and standards for ourselves, we just simply choose to be a part of the path or walk away from it. So we don't really tell people, don't do that.
No, and I think that's where
that way.
I think that's where leading and inspiring comes in, leading by example versus setting. Yeah, I guess I just have a challenge with the term management, as having been paid as a manager before, because
right,
there was so much.
Doing? You're going through you are leading your group in a pathway. Right. And that's what you want to do in life for yourself and for others.
I think
direction.
When it's done effectively, yes, you are leading. And that's, again, that I think that just brings me to the term leading. I think there's there's such a difference when you're exercising leadership through example, through inspiration, through, as you say, putting, hey, this is where we want to go. What ideas do you have to get there? Let me
Correct.
empower
Whereas a
you.
person that's controlling would go, hey, this is where we're going to get there, and this is what we're going to do, and this is what you need to do, and this is what you need to say, and this is what, you know what I mean? There's no, it's just one way,
Right,
and this
right.
is it. And yes. So with management, because you've been so used to doing it in the corporate world, me too, over 35 years in the corporate world, being in that role, a company manages itself, and it has its policies, so it can lead to a certain direction, so it can be healthy, productive, it would have longevity, it would have essential communication, it would attract what it needs to attract in terms of vendors, clients, customers. It manages itself, and everything is on point. Every single aspect of a company has to have a structure in order for it to lead, in order for it to go down a certain path. And I always say to my clients, why don't we treat ourselves like a company?
Right.
Why are there not boundaries and standards and policies for family, for friends, for work, for self-care, for children, for this, for that, within myself?
Right.
So we can have longevity and prosperity and be healthy and productive. And there's flexibility. How many times a day do we go to plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D? But if I'm going to be so controlling, plan A has to work. Plan A has to work no matter what,
Yeah.
So managing is looking at each narrative and creating a solution and a pathway to reach its goal.
Okay.
And also make decisions based on current reality, which is, this is not a fit for me.
Right.
I'm walking away.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. How about those apples? So we talked about like how it's created, and also, can we really help those people? No. It goes right back to, I was going to say, can we really help those people that are controlling? Well, only if you're close to them and you're able to have a conversation, either through the front door, through the side window, through the back door, through the skylight. I mean, you have to somehow very strategically enter into a conversation where they can hear you and perhaps see a different, viewpoint. If someone really, really cares about someone, to say, hey, this is not going anywhere. This is not productive. Can we look at it in different ways? And why we have to tread so carefully, because of the level of attachment people have on what they think or what they say or what they do. It's like, don't touch them almost.
Right.
Point. That's why it's so toxic.
So how do we know when it's not our own attachment that we want to have that conversation for a specific versus that other individual truly is trying to control us and everything around them? Like how would I discern that? Okay, am I just in a place of, I want it to be my way, and
Right.
I'm resisting the fact that they want it to be their way, or I'm just perceiving, I mean, perhaps it is me that is, how do I discern whether I'm the one that is the controller in this relationship or dialogue, not trying to place my expectation versus they're the one that's in that controller, or is it a little bit of both? How do we make
That's
that
very
discernment?
easy to discern it. The answer to your question is the fact that you're triggered.
Mm.
So whenever you're triggered, so what does that mean? It means that you are attached to a certain emotion, annoyance, frustration, anger, so on and so forth. If it's absolutely neutral, like as the same value as this pencil, like
Right.
absolutely neutral, then you know that you're coming from a different place. But when you're triggered as well, then there is something a lot more to it than that. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, that makes sense.
Right. And one always has to know that when you want to give advice to people, what is the why?
Right.
Why is it? Is it because you want to show off? Is it because there's a judgment? Is it because,
Your own insecurity.
yeah, exactly. And remember, when we do that, but that's a whole different topic. It's always healthy and productive to ask permission, because no one's asking you for your advice.
Right.
So therefore it's unsolicited. So unless if you're being paid for it,
Right.
then go right ahead. But otherwise, hey, may I share with you something? It can be kind of sensitive. I made an observation, and I think I think it's very beneficial. Do you feel comfortable, and may I have permission to share? And if the answer is no, it's no.
What do you mean? I can't control that them hearing my advice?
There you go. And
Even if it's
boom,
good?
you're triggered. And that's the thing. Many people would not want to say those words,
Right.
because they absolutely want to have their say so. Well, then you're
Right.
triggered. Then it's
Yeah.
your own issue.
Absolutely.
Your own issue. Like, deal with that wound. Isn't that funny?
Well, yeah. So now let's, you again, I think we always get back to this, the wound, deal with the wound, right? So, so let's take a quick break and talk about some of the wounds that tend to manifest themselves or create that need for control when we come back from the break. How's that?
Sounds good.
Sound like a plan?
Let's
All right.
do it.
Let's take a quick break for our sponsor.
Hey, my good people out there. How would you like to be inspiring and motivating? Perhaps be the next Marcus Hart, Brenda Kilhoffer of Cheap Mama Life Podcast, or maybe even Joe Rogan, the great Joe Rogan. Learn how to transform lives without doing the unthinkable. Taking all of these crazy courses in college. Pay $0 with this free podcast host training course from the Transform You Media Network. Simply sign up and pay nothing. Go to transformubroadcast.com. That's /free-podcast-training. Transform the letter U broadcast.com /free-podcast-training. I'll see you on the other side, and hopefully we'll be listening to your podcast next. Let's do it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back after the break. You are here with me, your cheap mama, and Ingrid Essawova. And we were talking about control. And as always, we got back to there's a wound causing it, right? There's a wound that is causing it. If you are the person that is feeling the need to control everybody around you, there's a wound causing that. If you are feeling triggered by the control of others, right? There's a wound causing that. If you feel the need to respond to that when someone else is in attempt to control, if you feel that trigger, right? There's a wound that's causing those issues around control. And I think, as we were talking about this, I think that desire within folks to control, I see some I see people in my children's lives that are dealing with all of this anxiety. And I think a lot of times it's around the fact that they don't have control of everything that they want to have control of. I mean, how much, so how do we start to address or even identify what are some common wounds that should, if I were to sit back and say, okay, I recognize that I have some issues around controlling everything in my life. What might some common wounds be that perhaps I should start to explore to heal, to begin healing those wounds if control is a central theme in my life that I'm challenged with?
I think it's very important to understand that when we feel that, it's never about other people. It's always about ourselves. And where it leads right up to is self-worth. Yeah, worthiness.
Okay.
Don't feel worthy, don't feel confident, don't feel enough, don't feel matter, like we matter, doesn't feel like we're heard. And that, I believe, is the base and the essence of the wound, because we think that we need to gather feeling worthy, feeling enough, feeling that we matter from other people, other things, other concepts outside of ourselves. And that it is far from the truth. That is not where we draw that energy, that fuel. We can't, because then we're actually waiting for other people to react and to see what they think about us and what they do. And that's why we're trying to control, like, see me, hear me, listen to me, I'm making sense, do this, and now think of me as the savior, in the situation. And now that you all agree, now I feel worthy. Now I feel worthy, so therefore I am good now. So therefore, and he agrees too. So the essence of the wound is always within ourselves, and we have to understand that us humans on earth here created this concept about thinking that that's outside of ourselves. It actually is inside of ourselves. We are already worthy as our soulful self. We were already born worthy and enough, and we matter. Otherwise, we can't be here on earth. But then again, that's a whole different topic for a whole different day about religion and spirituality. But anyway, so therefore, bottom line, it's about our worthiness. And your mic is on mute, Brenda.
It is, because I
There
still
you
have
go.
dogs barking and I can't control that situation. I didn't want to bring it back, but they have stopped. So, one of the things that as you were talking, you had mentioned that when in this situation that we're trying to control or get agreement with and all of those things, that when they agree with us, or then we feel that
better.
We feel better, we feel all of those things. But let's talk about when they don't.
Oh my gosh. And there is more fuel. It's fueling more the fact that we feel even more unworthy. And the fact that we don't matter, and that we're not enough. And we try to pound this into people constantly, and that's why we have that control. So why is it that we don't go through high school or through school, and we're not taught where worthiness actually comes from, and the fact that we already are, otherwise we could not be here on earth. We're already worthy. It's just a matter of creating your own pathway and choosing situations and people in your life that are your match authentically, organically, just naturally within, because millions of people will disagree with you and millions of people will agree with you. and you just have to be on the path of least resistance and being able to let go.
Well, Ingrid, that's a loaded question if you ask me. Why
Okay,
does
fine.
school and why does this why are we not taught that? Well, I don't know. Maybe somebody wants to control all of us. So
There
if we
you
taught
go.
that,
And now we just made a full circle on the topic of control.
and so if that were taught, well, then maybe it might be a bit harder for that to continue to happen.
Exactly.
That's a whole nother.
That's a whole different animal.
But yeah, I feel like you're right. We spend so much time trying to draw our worth from others, and then when we don't receive that, it creates this bigger void, this bigger pit, this energy.
And then the control is even more intense, and there's more yelling, and there's more control taking place, and it's just like they're trying to indirectly or directly beat it out of us, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is about the worthiness, and it's funny. I say this to my clients: when you're confident, how long does it take to get confident and secure and have high self-esteem? And clients say, oh, that takes a lifetime. I said, okay, and then how do you know that you've arrived, that you're confident and self-esteem and have self-worth and all that? And it's by everything is outside of yourself, what people say to you, what people say about you, what relationships you have, how much money you have in the bank, what lifestyle you have, what relationships you have. Okay, well, what happens if one day, like COVID happens,
Right.
and suddenly you lose your job, you lose your money, suddenly your self-image is a little different, and people start saying the opposite things. Where's that confidence? Where's that security? Is it the same, or does it plummet? It plummets. It plummets within like minutes. So something took you a lifetime to create, and you lose it within moments. So therefore, how real is that? So it's actually conditional. Security, self-esteem, and all that is actually conditional based on the environment and what's happening. So anything that's conditional like that is not true. So therefore, how's the soulful self find confidence, security, and self-esteem? Voila, it doesn't need it. It doesn't have it because it doesn't need it. It's not a part of its wiring. It's already enough. It's already worthy. It's already beautiful and special and perfect. It already is. It's just the fact that we're disconnected from ourselves, why we feel the need to be confident and have self-worth. When you're connected to yourself, everything's perfect. It doesn't matter the texture, the structure, the magnitude. It's just perfect. You're already worthy. You're already enough. You don't have to prove it to anybody. It just simply is. If I stuck to the topic, I do not know, but I feel like it was important to say.
Well, and I feel like we all know people, like when you are around somebody who is truly just connected in pure love, in light, in joy, in all. I mean, it
radiates.
It radiates. It spills out all over you. And by the same token, when you're around somebody who is stuck in all of those insecurities, in the anger that comes with the insecurities, in the filth, you feel that too. And I think the biggest piece
of your stomach,
and I think it's like, something that's important, I think, for all of us to consider is, you brought up, have we arrived? I don't know that I look at arriving as there is no arrival. We're always, or at least we're always in growth mode. If we're not growing, we're decaying. So you're right. While we may have in all of these circumstances maybe connected or disconnected from everything else, I think we can reconnect to everything else going on in a second, in a heartbeat. We don't, that part of it's a choice. Like either we're connect to the outside world and needings. I'm trying to see how to put this. Like a circumstance, a new circumstance can happen that could trigger us. I mean, are you suggesting that there is a place that we can at some point arrive and never ever be triggered again and not have to work on?
Oh my goodness, yes. That's actually what I do with my clients every single day. When we connect to ourselves, the closer we are to source, and there is an absence of triggers. The triggers will be the anger, the stress, the frustration, the anxiety. And the reason that we have the triggers is because we're disconnected from ourselves. So one would say, well, if you're disconnected from everyone and everything outside of yourself, then how do you connect with the outside world? When we're saying connected, I'm not talking about choosing your fit in terms of your relationship. That's a different connection.
Right.
But when you're connected to the outcome, when you're connected to the everything outside of yourself or some things outside of yourself, you have an expectation. If you have an expectation, then you have an attachment to the outcome. Whereas people that are connected to their soulful self, they're connecting to themselves, they see things outside of themselves clearer because they're not in their head.
Right.
They hear things clearer and they are in the moment. And again, they're not in their head. So therefore, they actually see truth. And they actually love unconditionally a lot more for the ones that are disconnected from outside of themselves. Because when you're connected to outside of yourself, you're so in your head. There's so much judgment for other people and yourself that you're not seeing things that are right there under your nose.
I guess so what I'm, and you had kind of said they love unconditionally more.
Yes.
And my thinking or my feeling or what, where I was kind of going with that is, doesn't it truly take being conscious all the time, consciously aware all the time, to truly be connected to your heart, to source, to all of those? And isn't it possible, no matter how much you've grown, that you could, even for a moment, there could be an old wound that maybe you didn't address yet, that maybe that all of a sudden, oh wait, you veer off.
You don't know what you don't know,
right.
And that it will let you know.
And I think that's why I say that we may never quite arrive, at least as an earthly being here on earth, while we're doing that this false sense of arrival, like, oh, I got this, you know what, I'm connected to me. And ego can, in fact, slip in here and there at times because you don't know what you don't know.
Correct. But when you are triggered, remember, the evolving is in different stages. There's ego versus the soulful self. Then it's the soulful self. Then it's mastery. Yes, you can absolutely attain the soulful self. And the triggers that come up are things from the past that are new. So it's never about the future things. Because when you've arrived to connecting to the soulful self, you take care of the future things. If you suddenly are divorced, you get a divorce, and you were like you were connected to the soulful self, and then something occurred that is brand new, which is connected to the past, which is like a divorce, that is new, but it has to do with the past.
Right.
So you only have wounds from your past. So if you take care of all your past, every single one of it, and start fresh, then you won't have the wounds. So
is that a reasonable expectation, to recall and take care of every single past wound, or will they show up? Will they show up, as we're talking about now, when a new experience might trigger them to?
It is what you decide. One day you have to decide for yourself, what experience do I want every second of the day? Because every second of the day, either you're thinking something, you're saying something, or you're doing an action, or a combination of 1, 2, or 3 together. And your mindfulness and your awareness of your journey is not judging it and not making a big deal of it. And if there is a trigger that you find, you're like, okay, so I will take care of it. And you just take care of those wounds. But your wounds are of your past.
Right.
Because I remember a person said to me, well, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what comes up. I said, listen, there are billions of situations. I get that. But it's like a funnel. At the very top, the widest part of the funnel, are the billions of situations. Have I gone through every single possible scenario in life? No, I have not.
Right.
But then it's a funnel, because then there's a core. So when it gets right down to the little nozzle right at the very end of the funnel, that's actually me. And the little tiny bigger part, it's, let's say, a dozen core issues. You take care of those dozen core issues, because one core issue equals 7,332 situations. The next number 2 out of the 12 takes care of 8,432, and the other one takes care of 1 billion. You know what I mean? So you take care of those core issues. No matter what comes in, you got it in every angle. It's like understanding something. When you understand something, you can put it in any angle whatsoever. If you understand it, you can answer it. Awesome. Instead of people that memorize it. You know what I mean? Absolutely. So yes, and then after you do your soulful self, then it's increasing the percentage of the brain, because we only use 3 to 7% of the brain. You always evolve, but the steps, like the major components of the evolvement, you absolutely can.
Okay. Well, and I think that's what I mean. I think we're saying the same thing. And I think that's what I mean by not arriving, because we are always evolving. So there's
always evolving, always, and you can always
however
arrive at a certain section, if you so choose.
However we can overcome those wounds. So we're running out of time now, but I'd like for you to name off as many of those core wounds that you just mentioned, so that our listeners can say, oh, I relate to that wound.
Sure. Support, abandonment, betrayal, entitlement, not shining in your light, giving away your power, guilt, shame. There are some of them right there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I wanted them to have like an example of the different wounds and how, and then of course, to your point, if shame is the wound, you could probably go through
absolutely
millions and billions of little issues that came up over their lives that were the wound, the hurt, the feeling.
Yes, absolutely. And
Awesome.
it's all temporary, people, even though it lasts maybe for decades.
Now, isn't it interesting how we went from control to all of these wounds and hurt where we feel such lack of control?
Right.
So-
Exactly. Because that's the essence. It's the core.
Exactly. So because
There you go.
Well, awesome. Anything to add to our topic today as we...
I think we beat this little puppy to death.
I know. I think you buttoned it up and tied it all up in a nice little bow.
We totally did that.
And brought it back to the source and gave our listeners, you know, a lot to think about and to, you know, maybe mentally go through. And like, what would you, besides, obviously, I think, besides reaching out to you and taking advantage of that free consultation that you offer, what would be a good exercise? Like if this conversation led me, the listener, to sit and think, wow, I feel like I have been controlling, and I feel like some wounds that I'm experiencing in my life are related to shame or guilt or not shining in my light. Do you recommend that they spend some time journaling on that, praying on it, thinking about it, meditating on it? What other you know, and obviously call you, but what would you suggest? Where would you suggest they start if they're not yet ready to do that?
I think the fact that they're even able to address it, that they are not in denial, and they admit to themselves that this is an issue and it's impacting their lives. I think that's 50% right there.
Amen.
and where to go next? Know that there is nothing to be afraid of. And it won't hurt to do a consultation because the journey is yours. The journey is yours, and understand that it's painful. It's not painful to address the issue. It's painful not to.
Absolutely. Well, Bridget, thank you. Bridget. Oh my gosh. Why did I? I'm just going to rename you Ingrid.
Many people call me Bridget. I mean,
do they? I wonder why.
Yes,
Maybe you were Bridget in a past life or something.
There you go. Because I'm tall and
I actually found myself thinking that earlier, and I'm like, what am I thinking? And then it just came out. So who knows?
That is so funny.
It is. Ingrid, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And always coming back. And I hope that what you shared today will help launch some of our listeners into growth. Tell them how to get in touch with you as always.
Sounds good. If we just made a difference to one person, we did our job.
Absolutely.
Done.
And where do they find you? Where do they find you?
Just go to simplytrue.com. Simplytrue.com. Just in case you didn't hear me, simplytrue.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. If you enjoyed the show, please like, rate, share it. Help us get out there and make the difference that we wish to in this world. So have a wonderful day wherever you're listening, and come back and join us next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed that episode of the Cheap Mama Life podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review right now if you haven't already, and hit that share button. Until next time.